Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our talks with Walt as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We now come to this little amazing gem of a poem, To Him That Was Crucified. Now this is poem 15 of the 38 of Autumn Rivulets. It's kind of hidden, it's kind of buried in the middle of Leaves of Grass. And there are many readers of Leaves of Grass who actually find this poem, believe it or not, first. Now, obviously it was very controversial in its day for reasons that we have to get into. Obviously we're talking about the idea of Christ to a very Christianized America. And what is it that he has to say about Christ, and even here, notice, to Christ, is going to be fascinating. Now, of course, we've pointed out already that we think of autumn as over-related to the old and rivulets as over-related to the new. We're going to see why this little poem is hidden away in this part of Leaves of Grass and in this part of Autumn Rivulets. It may be the most controversial poem in all of Leaves of Grass. Certainly for a lot of readers it was, because of what it had to say about Christ, about Christianity, and about America as a new kind of country for Christianity and for the understanding of Christ. Now, let's go ahead and point out that if he wants to emphasize Christ, he can emphasize any number of elements of Christ, but notice here it's crucified. That is to say, Whitman was acutely aware that in the Western tradition, we've always had a fascination with who he had a fascination with. Prometheus, of course we can think of Socrates, and then we think of Christ. That is to say, we've always had a fascination with martyrs, and the project of martyrs, the idea that sometimes you have to sacrifice everything to get the thing you want. There's no question that Whitman himself identified with this idea of being a martyr. He, of course, during his lifetime, as we've said in several other lectures, was not that well received, not that often well loved and appreciated, and often maligned. I mean, think about how he would read Plato's Republic, Book 7. And you'll remember that when that philosopher goes down into the cave, he is misunderstood, he is marginalized, and dare we say it, crucified, right? With that in mind now, let's turn to our assumptions. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt. Everything from the inscriptions up to and including a set of introductory comments for Autumn Rivulets. I'm hopeful that you've already been there with us, and then we just finished with vocalism. Now, our Nortons, as we always will move there, our Nortons will tell us that this poem was first published under the title in the Messenger Leaves group of 1860 Leaves of Grass and has remained unchanged except for the dropping in 1881 of the parenthetical phrase, "there are others also," at the end of the third line. By the way, some read this as very close to a sonnet, by the way. The opening lines are plainly a reference to the figure of Christ, the person quickly broadening its meaning to include, the poem quickly broadening its meaning to include all crucified ones, of whom the poet is the comrade and brother. Now, scholars have been pointing out, and it's now probably time for us to just say out loud, that Whitman has a very interesting relationship to the idea of Christ and, of course, Christianity and the Bible. There are, many scholars have argued, at least 200 direct biblical allusions in Leaves of Grass. You could probably find more than that, and we've obviously pointed a few of these out along the way. In some ways, we've said it, that Whitman wished that Leaves of Grass was the New American Bible. It's almost as if everything we've read in some ways theologically will bring us to this poem, and we'll be kind of blown away by the way in which he is so inclusivist in his thinking about the Christ project, if you want to think of it in that way. Whitman has a story where he was asked to read from the Bible to a dying soldier, and especially about the resurrection, and it had a powerful influence in his thinking about his project of Leaves of Grass. The word Bible, by the way, ends up 7 times in Leaves of Grass specifically, and the word Christ comes up 6 times. However, here notice, not mentioned, just alluded to. You'll remember in Song of Myself, passage 33, walking the old hills of Judea with the beautiful, gentle God by my side, and then I am the man, I suffered, I was there. That identification with Christ then is the brother of, all rejected people, we might say. Therefore, for Whitman, his focus on the Bible is that he wants Leaves of Grass to be that new American Bible that will obviously emphasize a certain kind of humane view, philosophy, humanism, we might even call it. And then, of course, that idea that he himself would call Leaves of Grass a sacred text. The great construction of the new Bible is once how he put it in his notes. In Democratic Vistas, it is true that Whitman did lament the absence of what he called genuine belief. Now, what exactly he meant by that is not altogether clear, but maybe from a poem like this we can figure it out. The great scholar Levine has pointed out that Whitman read the Bible from seeing two different biblical patterns, where he saw the Old Testament narrative as a national motif and the New Testament narrative as a personal motif. Obviously, theologians can debate this. And in some ways, it's been argued that Whitman wanted to kind of provide an Americanized Jesus that would emphasize a certain kind of inclusivity, empathizing, for example, with all peoples, and we've seen this so many times already in Leaves of Grass. And of course, we commented as well on Whitman's prophetic voice. That is to say, the Old Testament prophet, the gadflies, the Socratic gadflies all come to mind as well. And of course, you'll remember it, that he will say it in Song of Myself 48, that there's a certain understanding of why he wants to make sure that he's different as it relates. Do you remember the way he says this? I'll just read it for us really quickly, just to remind us. Passage 48, when he starts out, I've said that the soul is not more than the body, and I have said that the body is not more than the soul, and nothing, not God, is greater than oneself is. Do you remember when he says this? And I say to mankind, be not curious about God, for I am curious about each, am not curious about God. No array of terms can say how much I am at peace about God and about death. I hear and behold God in every object, yet understand God not in the least. I do not understand who there can be more wonderful than myself. And then, of course, the final lines. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God each hour of the 24, each moment then in the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face in the glass I find letters from God dropped in the street, and everyone is signed by God's name. I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. I mean, as we said when we met those lines, you can't find more radical lines in Leaves of Grass theologically. Well, with the exception maybe of passage, right, 43 of Song of Myself. Do you remember this set of lines from passage 43? I do not despise you, priests, all time the world over. My faith is the greatest of faiths and the least of faiths, enclosing all worship, ancient and modern, and all between ancient and modern, believing I shall come again upon the earth after 5,000 years. Waiting responses from oracles, honoring the gods, saluting the Son. Later he says, accepting the Gospels, accepting him that was crucified, taking us obviously to this poem now, knowing assuredly that he is divine, to the Mass kneeling, or the Puritan's prayer rising, or sitting patiently in a pew, ranting and frothing in my insane crisis, or waiting dead-like till my spirit, notice the word spirit, arouses me, looking forth on pavement and land, or outside of pavement and land, belonging to the winders of the circuits of circuits, one of the centripetal and centrifugal gang, I turn and talk like a man, leaving charges before a journey. This journey is going to be mentioned. And do you remember in passage 44 when he says it? I'm an acme of things accomplished, and I'm an encloser of things to be. Some have argued that line from 44 of Song of Myself is at the heart of the Leaves of Grass project. Notice all the trinities as well. I mean, he's playing, guys, I've said this to you. When you read a poem like this, you cannot help but smile by virtue of just the game that he's playing. Look how he says it. My spirit to yours, dear brother. And again, this idea of dear brother takes us back to Lilacs 4 when he uses the same phraseology to talk of Lincoln. Do not mind because many sounding your name do not understand you. Of course, this idea of understanding, we've pointed out again and again, is so important. Notice that he'll begin with dear brother, making us think of comrade. We'll get to that word twice in this poem. Or camarado, as he finishes it with Song of the Open Road. Give me your hand. Will you give me your hand? Will you travel with me? From passage 15. I do not mind because many sounding your name do not understand you. I do not sound your name, but I understand you. Again, this taking us back to Song of Myself 48 that we just read. I specify you with joy, O my comrade, to salute you and to salute those who are with you. 10 times the word we is going to be used in this poem, and then 2 times with the word us. That's interesting, the inclusivity of this poem. I do not sound your name, but I understand you. I specify you with joy, O my comrade, to salute you and to salute those who are with you, before and since, and those to come also. You'll think of poets to come. You'll think of the fact that I suggested that the word come, the very first word of the deathbed edition of Leaves of Grass, will again, no pun intended, come up again and again and again. We're going to see it one more time here. In other words, he's speaking to Christ, calling him a comrade or a brother, and he's saying, I'm not alone. There's a handful of us, he'll say few, who actually understand what it is you're about, even though I don't claim to actually understand you at all, right? Notice he says, here's the project, that we all labor together. It's interesting the way Whitman knows how to use the word all. I think this is one of the things that makes him such a great democratic, if I can use that phrase still today, that great democratic poet, right? That inclusivist poet. That we all labor together, transmitting the same charge and succession. We few equals, again, this idea of the equality is so central to reading Whitman. Indifferent of lands, indifferent of times. We're going to get to this when we hit Passage to India, which may be the most precious set of lines for us in terms of his worldview, not just his American view. Notice he'll say it, we, enclosers, it's the only time that word gets used in all Leaves of Grass, of all continents, all castes, allowers of all theologies. By the way, that's all three. Do you remember this creeds and schools in abeyance? That's that creeds part. And yet notice here we're going to include it, from Song of Myself, Passage 1. Now we're going to include it all. Compassionators, perceivers, rapport of men, again, another three. We walk silent. And again, taking us back to Song of Myself, Passage 48. When we did 48, I don't know if I mentioned that Crucified was coming as a poem that we would study, but certainly the two have to be read together. So go back and look at Passage 48 of Song of Myself again. That we walk silent among disputes and assertions. Obviously, theologians have been debating what does anything mean, what is a passage, what does a word mean. Obviously, we've got the tension of the dialectic between, in the Christian world, the Catholics versus the Protestants and all of that. So he says, I'm not interested in weighing in on all of that. But, he says, reject not the disputers, nor anything that is asserted. Well, you'll remember in the Song of the Open Road, right, that in Passage 10, he called them bad-eyed priests. So I'm not altogether sure that this is actually the case. By the way, this inclusivity of all theologies will take us back to Salomon 3, if you want to go back and run that to ground. It's fascinating. He says, I'm not ready to have a fight. I want to stay outside of that theological, religious fight that obviously was ongoing in Whitman's own time. And then he'll say it. We hear the bawling. Later we're going to get to a poem called Transpositions that will use this same phrase. We hear the bawling and din. We're reached at by divisions. Obviously, we think about the very war itself as a division that was driven in some measure by religious interpretations, no question. Jealousies, recriminations, that's another three, right? By the way, he points out that it's funny how people in theology and religion fight politically the way people in Washington might. They close, he says, all of these people, these bawling, they close prematurely upon us. By the way, look at all the war language that's about to happen. To surround us, my comrade. In other words, he's going to argue that it is in fact these religious people, these theologians, that have in some ways ruined the very Christ figure that he is identifying with. They close prematurely upon us to surround us, my comrade, yet we walk unheld. And obviously Song of the Open Road with Walt comes to mind. Notice the word free. It's such an important word, as we've said, for Whitman. The whole earth over. Again, back to Passage to India. Journeying up and down. Back to Song of Myself 46 with this idea of journeying. Till we make our ineffaceable mark. In other words, can't be removed. Upon time and the diverse ages. Diverse eras is here the only use in all Leaves of Grass. Till we saturate. This will take us back to trickle drops. There it was, the word saturate was more sexual usage. Here he brings the two together. This is what makes Whitman so remarkable and so dangerous for readers of the Deathbed Edition in Whitman's own time. This word saturate has, as well, of course, a lot of Germanic and growth kinds of word pictures. Obviously, Leaves of Grass comes to mind. Till we saturate time and eras, that the men and women of races, ages to come, back to that idea of earlier, to the to come also, and obviously poets to come, may prove brethren and lovers as we are. Now, this is fascinating. Brethren and lovers, you'll remember it from this moment, yearning and thoughtful. Literally the very phrase is there. Think about the power in Song of the Open Road 47 when he says, I'm the teacher of athletes, he most honors my style, who learns under to destroy the teacher. I think Whitman, and certainly a lot of scholars have pointed out as well, this is Whitman's view of Christ and Christianity and Christian theology, transcending and including. In other words, everything that came before is brought us historically to this moment in America, but that's also true for Whitman theologically, and in some ways it's clear he identifies somehow with the Christ message, with the Christ goal, only now he's going to provide it as a poet instead of as a priest, and to that degree here now we're to our two-way observations. Here, of course, for Whitman, the poet now is the American priest, he who transcends and includes. At 2b, the repetition here is remarkable. We, obviously inviting readers in to become a part of that few that has this mission, this global mission to bring the message of Christ. Notice the word joy is put, that word is inserted there quite brilliantly. At 3a, there are so many, there's so many places we could go here. I just want to remind us that Tolstoy's The Kingdom of God is Within You, of course, a phrase from Luke 17:21, was published in 1894. Remember this poem of 1860 in 1894, but it was published in Germany because it was banned in Russia, and of course one of the most remarkable texts to follow this line of thinking, of taking the Christian message and somehow almost like the message of Christ and secularizing it in some profound way. Of course here we have Gandhi's Be the Change that you wish to be in the world. Everything from the great theologians of Martin Buber to Rob Bell will be important here. And of course the great Houston Smith, the great apologist for all religions and religions of the world. His text we've talked about many times in 303, as well as, of course, Ken Wilber, the great integralist thinker, that makes the argument that all of the great religious traditions have to be understood in consort by our time, by the 21st century, right? Finally, at 3b, how do you read a poem like this? Some readers of, I know people who had read none of Leaves of Grass. They didn't know any of it, not even Song of Myself 6. They had never seen it. And then for whatever reason, they were turned on to this poem, and then they had to read all of Leaves of Grass. They were like, anybody that could write a poem like that deserves my time, my energy. How about you? Where do you come down on this? Are you one of this few we that is interested in sharing this idea of Christ from this perspective, or is that for you an abhorrent ideal? Like, where do you come down on this? And what do you think? Is this maybe one of the most radical poems that we've read thus far in Leaves of Grass? In some ways, a culmination. I hope you're continuing to be challenged. Thank you.